Hey, everybody. I'm Victor. I work as an engineer here at Cosmonic, and we've been focusing lately on Wash Dev and trying to get it, really tight and to increase and improve the onboarding experience and the developer experience. Because obviously, if we believe in a world where people build WebAssembly components, people use providers to abstract dependencies and plug and play and really get all that going, we need to we need to make sure that interface and that developer experience is really tight and sort of a tight feedback loop. So WashDev is something we've actually had out for a while, and we are improving it and trying to really dial it in. So here, let me share my screen here. Everyone should be able to see this. So as I've said, WashDev is for building wasmCloud projects. Components, when we say wasmCloud project, just to make it really clear, we mean both WebAssembly components and capability providers. We use the word app because an app involves more than just one component, right? You've got a WebAssembly component, you've got a provider, let's say an HTTP server, and a handler for that HTTP endpoint. So just to set level set a little bit here, when we talk about a project, we can talk about either WebAssembly component, which you might think of like an app, or one of the infrastructure dependencies, right? Those middle pieces that we're helping you abstract away from, which are capability providers. So Wash Dev, one of the things that we thought was really important to get the developer experience right. Level 0 is just building, watching your source code change, rebuilding, and redeploying, right? But what we wanted to do was to leverage some of the WebAssembly interface types, and we've up until now we've called that WIT, right? And so we wanted to use that interface language, that IDL, to automatically pull out your dependencies based on what you're importing and what you're using. Now, you can think of this pretty simply in that if we see you're building a component, let's say you're building a component that handles an HTTP request, and you have an import, or you have an import of, let's say, key value, right? And so we know that this component must answer an HTTP request, and it must use some sort of key value capability provider, right? Whether it doesn't matter what the key value store is, right? It could be Redis, could be Couchbase, could be lots of things, but we can tell those things just from the interface. Now we can take that interface and we can use that to generate automatically the spec as sort of a local mock of the deployment environment and deploy it locally, right? As opposed to just deploying just the one program, right? And so we've really leaned into that and tried to focus on that for both imports and exports. And this is for capabilities that we consider really important and vital, sort of baseline capabilities. Key value is one of them. HTTP servers are one of them. Outgoing HTTP requests is another one. There are a bunch, and we're always open to expanding this in the future as we see usage go up for certain interfaces. But the core of Wash Dev now, as opposed to before, is build your component, watch your code, build your component, deploy your component locally, and spin up its dependencies where we can. So here's just a quick look, and I'm going to demo it really quick here on what the output of this looks like, right? And it's what you'd expect, right? We sort of go through, we sort of generate you a session, because it turns out you can run more than one command on a computer at the same time. So you could have two Wash Dev sessions running on the same machine, and we want those to not collide. And you can have the component get built, right? And or provider, right? You can also get an HTTP server built, spun up. So we have our managed and sort of officially supported capability providers, and HTTP server is one of them. As such, we know that we can, since we know that provider well, we can spin it up actually for you, automatically give you a place, and you can see it sort of here to the bottom, the third line from the bottom here, that we can give your we can figure out the address that the HTTP server is running at and tell you where to go hit. So you can sort of, while you're testing, you can just open up a web console, a web browser, and take a look at what your component is outputting. So I'm going to do a quick demo here with a somewhat simple component, which I think is a fun for the long time is a fun one for the longtime Linux and Unix users. So I'm gonna change my screen share real quick here. All right. Okay. So everyone should be able to see my screen. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So what we've got here is, well, I'll zoom out a little bit actually, is Ferris says, and this is kind of like cow say, if you for those people who are old enough or Unix enough to remember cow say. We have just a regular component, and we can wash build it, right? So, just a quick explanation. We've got the code on the left side, and we've got the just a terminal open to the same folder on the right. So from the folder, we can do a simple wash build, right? And we get our component output, right? So we've got a signed component here. And we've got an unsigned component as well. If we're running in, something else, like let's say a sort of less particular runtime. And what we can do is we always include with our examples, and this is an example that's in the wasmCloud repo, so you can look at it anytime. What we do is we always include a wadam file, depending on how you want to pronounce it. So this one is quite simple because Ferris says doesn't have any dependencies, right? It just takes in an invocation and it spits out text. So it's quite a simple application, but this is basically what it looks like. Very, very easy to sort of to grok. What we can do in this, is actually we could deploy this by just deploying the wadam file on the left, right? And that's easy and that's simple, mostly because we've done the work of writing the wadam file and making it simple to use. But what we want to do is to have this be a sort of no touch, no ups solution. And so what we've done is we've built wash dev to be able to to read your code, watch it change, build the component, spin up whatever wadam or whatever application manifest is necessary to run your application. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to call it. So I'm going to say, let's look at what's running. Let's look at my apps. So what I have is actually a wash app, a new wash app here. And this is from a previous run of the regular app. We have the dev version of the app. Now, note that all dev applications are ephemeral. So they're prefixed just to make it easy to sort of see which is which. And so we've got a new app here, which is dev prefixed, and it has a new little identifier, which you can see here, right? And we're going to get the inventory that is currently running on this host. So we're going to see all the different components that are running. And we're going to take this Ferris says instance and we're going to trigger it, right? Just to see what the output looks like. So this is now, and let's make an edit. Let's make a change. So we were wasmCloud users at this point, but now we're innovative, right? We've gotten our innovation day underway. So now we're innovating, I think. And that's it. That's all you need to do, right? You change the file. Our file watcher is very active. So you can see as soon as I made a change to the file, it already went about building. And you can just rerun whatever command you are running to actually test your application. And you'll be able to see the output and see the component and its requirements, its dependencies change in real time. We think this is really going to supercharge the development and sort of tighten the feedback loop for developing applications and trying to build with wasmCloud. So we're pretty excited about what this will do just to make developing applications for this new paradigm and developing applications in general much easier, much faster, and with less. What would you to think of a good term for it? I think I'd call it just uncertainty around infrastructure, or sort of infrastructure nervousness that a lot of developers face. Right? You won't have to worry about the infrastructure at all. Within if we have interfaces that we recognize, we'll spin them up for you.
Hey Victor, it's me.
Hey,
I had
hey,
a
bro.
quick. Sorry, I'm not interrupting, right? Um,
No, no, no.
okay. I had a question. So because I had used WashDev before, and like at the time, WashDev was very, start a component and then hot reload it, and that was great. But this iteration of WashDev is the hot reload, but it's not just that. It's also kind of like an infrastructure as code or infrastructure as component type approach here, right? Like this wash dev, the manifest that you're writing, that spun up more than just the component when you ran it, right?
Yeah. So this example is actually very simple. And the thing is, there are a lot of other solutions that try and do something like this, but what it ends up forcing the developer or the average user to do is to figure out how to deploy everything um, from scratch, sort of by themselves. And like for some apps, that's very simple. Um, but the point of WashDev is indeed to start up your dependencies as well. Now, Ferris Says is a very simple app, right? It just spits out some text. But what we have here for apps that do, for example, HTTP handling, and this is why we included this particular example in the slides. If you require an HTTP server for your application to run, we spin up a sort of first approximation, right? We spin up a HTTP server, we hook it up to your component, and it's running, and you're ready to ping it. And so that's the very least we can do, and actually kind of close to the most we can do, because we can't tell exactly what your application does just by knowing that it handles HTTP requests, right? You could do absolutely anything once that HTTP request comes in, but we can at least make sure you have an HTTP request, make sure you have a key value server, make sure you have a blob store, things like that. And as long as you write to those interfaces, which is one of the core benefits of wasmCloud, you'll be able to run your app and test your app without setting up, additional infrastructure.
That's super cool. Um, and this might give you a pretty nice segue. This should be able to work with the custom capabilities we've been adding to wasmCloud, right?
Yeah, absolutely.